When the police came to our door, I thought they were going to tell us our son had had a bike accident because he rode his bike a lot. And I was expecting maybe he'd gone to hospital or it was a serious accident. But when I heard he had died, I was thinking it's too big a choice. There were still things we could have done, discussed, but it was now final. It was too big a choice to make it a final end. I'd had surgery and I was unable to move. I was still in a wheelchair and on my half foot. And so I was unemployed, whereas as soon as this happened, my husband's workplace offered him counselling. But I was left at home with nowhere to turn. I found in Greg's room a letter that the police had given to Ivan, and in it was a phone number to call if we felt we needed help. And so I rang the number and found out it was Lifeline, and 2 people came out to speak to us, and they spent 4 hours maybe at our house. And it was like gold to have somebody to just talk to about it, your emotions, the impact, the other children, the grandparents, the cousins, because we'd already lost another cousin in a car accident who was 17. So that was impacting on the family as well, now to lose Greg. They came a second time, and by the time they came the second time, inadvertently, I was hanging off every word they said. But then they said, that's it. They're only allowed to come twice. And so again, I was just left shattered. What do I do now? How do I get help now? I saw another little card and I rang the number and the chap said, we've got a lot of literature we can send you. So I waited and finally a package turned up and I read and read and read and read everything from standby I could get my hands on. And the chap even rang and he said, is that enough material? Are you okay? I said, I can't get through all this just yet, but I'm going, because I was unemployed, I couldn't do anything, I was at home, so all I could do was just keep reading the information that was in the pamphlets, in the books, in the little booklets, and that kept me going. But I was still aware I was going to need more help. My heart was just absolutely torn in half. And I knew I needed somebody else to help me with that pain. I just couldn't. The crying was so intense and so painful. I started to ring around and found a counselling centre, and that's when things started to change for me. They offered a little group every Thursday, second Thursday night for 2 hours, a psychologist and a counsellor, free of charge. We paid $5 for the biscuits and the cup of tea. And they did that for 2 years, and that was the huge turnaround. It was for parents who'd lost children, so it included people who'd lost 2-year-olds or stillborns or 7-year-olds. And then I started to see I was fortunate that I'd had Greg for 29 years. And I started to have a different perspective. And when the group finished, one night we went down to the lake that was part of the place, and they gave us candles, and we were able to say something of affirmation about our child and put the candle in the water and let it go. And that was very, very helpful. That was a very healing sensation to do that. Yeah. So counselling was essential for me. Yeah. I would highly recommend you find somebody, a counsellor or psychologist. The psychologist I found suited us. whereas we went and visited the psychologist our son saw, because I did tell him he needed to see a psychologist. And here he was, a blokey guy who'd run off on his bike with a big McLeod and chisel away at the countryside making mountain trail bike tracks, and like he was fit and strong. And when we went to visit her, there's flowers and fluffy things and trickly water things and butterflies, and I thought, no wonder he didn't go back. So sometimes I think you've got to find the right connection, but stick with it. We've now 4 years still seeing the same psychologist, and he has journeyed with us, not just Greg, but everything around it. What do we do with Greg's belongings? How do we handle the other children? How do we cope even with our house now that's got no children in it? As the journey has gone on, there's been support to know what to do like that. We don't need a whole room left all by itself without touching it to remember Greg. We might need a shelf, or special things, or maybe a cupboard, but we can part with some clothes, and we can part with his underpants, and we can part with other things that you just, but Greg, they were just what he was. And it's important for people to help you in your journey, so because you don't know what to do with all that. Your brain almost goes into jelly. It can't function, it can't process, it can't think through, it can't organise. So with somebody supporting you, it gives you the next step of how to grasp forward and move forward. And so things like his car, it finally stopped working, and we took it to the wreckers, and it wasn't until I went to put the rubbish out that his car was missing that I cried, because I knew we had to get rid of the car. It wasn't working, but I was able to manage that. I knew, okay, there's another part of him we're going to have to part with. And he's left us a cat, and so we're looking after the cat very well, but she's 20, and she was so feisty and angry and cranky and scratchy. Only Greg could handle her, so we've had to learn how to handle the cat. And I know there'll be a time when I'm going to have to part with her too. And so I'm realising now I don't need these things. Greg's in my heart, Greg's in my mind, Greg's in our living rather than in the things. And that's part of the journey, I think, is helping you understand those things. Yeah. Three years later, our son did exactly the same as his brother, because he was so bereaved by his cousin, and his brother, he just couldn't process that he was 19. So he ended up saying goodbye to everybody, and the police called us and said, "Where's Scott?" And he'd told Ivan he was just going for a ride to the shops. I said, "Go where Greg died, just go straight where Greg died." And they went there, and they got there in time, because his lungs had collapsed, his heart had stopped beating, he's gone into arrhythmia, and he's had broken his back in 3 places. But because they found him so quickly, they were able to get him to PA, and they've patched him up and put him all back together again. And a year later, he's a dynamic young man who's got purpose. And through the hospital and the processes of the CCU and the Wesley Mission and Richmond Fellowship, all these different things that they've been put into place, he's now a healthy young man, riding bikes, on skateboards, helping others and being part of the community. So he found who he was then, without having to be Greg's younger brother. I had no conversation with Scott. He was technical and computer games and following things that would happen on the computer. And I thought, if I don't connect somehow in this land, I could lose that. boy. And so I said to him one day, we were at Stones Corner, he was in the CCU, and I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm playing Pokemon. I've got MS, so it's tricky for me to walk." But he said, "If you can walk 100 meters, we can go to this point and there'll be a Pokemon stop. We can spin it and I'll show you. It's actually a point of interest." And we got to this seat, and I've seen Stones Corner many times. And it was this seat, and it was made of concrete, and the back of it was a buckle made of concrete, but it looked like a belt. I said, "That was really amazing. I'd never seen that before." "There's another one, 100 meters. Do you think you could walk there?" So, "Oh, okay, I'll walk there." So I pushed myself, walked a bit further, and it was a point of interest of a person who was at Coorparoo who had been on the land where now the big Stones Corner bus station is. I thought, wow, that's fascinating. And then he said, you could do this. This might help you with getting back into walking. And in the meantime, I went down to see my granddaughter, and so she set me up as her name, Livy. So not my name, I'm the Pokemon, but as Livy. I joined, and Scott taught me, and because he has got so involved in it, and he's now the administrator of his group, and he researches, he can teach me. I'm quite fortunate I've got an excellent teacher now to show me what to do and how to do it. But I can't believe the connection. He asks us now to come to his events, community events, to meet his friends, to go to the Stones Corner Tavern, and there's 50 people there. The connection, the community, the walking, it's given me great support and a really positive interaction and future for my own health even. It's been a really helpful thing. It's been, I would recommend it for anybody to connect with the next generation. It's worked really well. I would never have guessed in a million years that was something that would connect us as a family. But it's not just connected me to Scott, it's connected me to his sister, their family, a family down at, our other family down near Ballina, because of my granddaughter Livy. And so I said, "Hey Livy, I'm level 37. She goes, "Wawa." And I go, obviously that's pretty good if I get a Wawa. So yeah, it's helped a lot. It's helped a great deal.